ads are discrete. Like you run one ad and you evaluate one ad. So content doesn't work like that. You need 6 months.
Yeah.
The muscle to survive 6 months, you will not survive long-term in content.
True. Every factor outside that it shares the same format, I think everything else is different.
Exactly. Success in content is transferable. It is.
Yeah.
And the companies that are the most challenging to work for are the ones that don't have product market fit yet. This has now become a therapy session.
Therapy, yeah. People have gotten so much used to performance marketing. Like the content as a concept is very
Correct.
It's very young.
Correct.
And people are so used to like ads, and everybody's calculation is along the same lines. When you think of 1980s, 1990s, when actually like washing powder Nirma was a thing, it is very simple. I made an ad, I spent X money on the ad, I run it on the TV, I spend Y. How much ROI does that get me back?
Correct.
I mean, I think that was the end of the equation for an ad. On the other hand, content is very different.
Correct.
So if you had to sort of say, okay, this is how I look at content, what would that look like?
Right. So that's a great example.
Yeah.
Right. So the first problem or the first challenge with looking at content as if it's performance marketing is the time period. Right. So ads are discrete. Like you run one ad and you evaluate one ad. So content doesn't work like that. By definition, content is something that people come back to. Means it's a continuous process.
Right.
Meaning your evaluation should never be for one video. It should be over a period of time, especially when you're starting out.
True.
Right. So if let's say I was a brand manager or a founder and I want a low cost acquisition method, right? Which is generally why people come to content. Hey, it's cheap, I can do it.
Yeah. Most people think it's very cheap.
And which will come to that.
Yeah, later.
Right? So it is cheap, but it's not like
not the sense that they think
not
cheap.
the sense that they think, right? So the first problem is that you have to understand that it's a continuous process, meaning that you need to build momentum.
Yeah.
Without momentum, content will not work.
Yeah.
And then you can start evaluating individual pieces once you have that momentum.
True.
But starting out saying, hey, I'm giving this 3 weeks. If it works, it works. If it not, it will never work for you.
It's definitely not working.
Yeah. And anyone coming to tell you that, hey, I can predict virality, they are lying. Yes, it is not possible, right?
Yeah.
They can directionally say that, hey, the likelihood of this going viral is high, but no one can pinpoint and say, hey, if you do this, it will go viral. It's an asymptote. It's not, you can't reach it.
Yep.
Right? So that's number one. So virality cannot be predicted because algorithms cannot be predicted. Simple thing. If virality could be predicted, there would be some billionaire somewhere who is just minting money off of making everything go viral.
I think we were speaking about this like the last time we met also. Everybody should do content. I think
Correct.
Content is something that it's more like an extension of you. I think that is some way you can build leverage.
Yes.
After saying that, but if you are like a company, early stage startup or somebody who is starting off to do content,
I think what we are talking about is intentional leverage.
Correct.
Like oftentimes creators will make content and they will not know, hey, I have so many followers, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
Also, not talking about those people.
If you can explain what is intentional leverage.
Right. So if I'm a creator, like let me take my example only. I started Gyan Central, I scaled it up to like 60,000 followers of like, some whatever millions of views. And I was just doing it because I was like, hey, if I do content, something will happen. I have no idea what will happen.
Correct.
That is unintentional leverage. Right. I got leverage, but I can't do anything with it because I had no purpose.
Right.
Right.
I mean, you had leverage, like, okay.
Yeah, so, purpose in the sense I had nothing to sell. I had nothing of like, I had no clarity in vision that, hey, like I build a media house. What is the entrepreneurship angle to this?
Right.
Intentional leverage is the opposite side of things where you have a startup, you have something to sell, basically.
Yeah.
And you want to find a way to reach the right people, right? Which is your distribution. So that is what I mean by intentional leverage, right? For companies, especially, right? Which is what we are talking about, and hopefully, which is what we're hoping will help,
right,
with these videos. You need 6 months.
Yeah.
Like you need, if you don't have the patience and the muscle to survive 6 months, you will not survive long term in content.
True.
Right? So you need 6 months, and you have to, and that will come too, right? And we don't mean it's a bottomless pit that you keep pumping money into.
Right.
There is a framework to it. There is, I like to call it like what's the pod that you're looking at, right? And with each application, the pod changes. And we've talked about this before. So for example, if you are doing a podcast, then the minimum number of people that you need in order for it to be a viable, successful podcast is different than if you are doing, let's say, UGC content.
Right.
For example, I don't know how much you're into like fashion and all, but there's this women's fashion brand that's been booming on Instagram called New Me Asia. I really like it.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I really like it, and I'm trying to get in touch with like the social media manager to figure out like what their strategy is.
Right.
But the reason why I feel so that the pod that works for New Me Asia will be drastically different than something that works for a What the Fuck podcast.
Right.
Right? By Nitin Kamath, or something like a Barbershop by Shantanu, or whatever. They're all different because production is different, strategy is different, pre and post is different, execution is different.
Vision is different.
Correct.
Like
right?
basically every factor outside that it shares the same format. I think everything else is different.
Exactly. Apart from it goes on the same platform, everything else is different. Right? And that is, I think, another nuance that people miss out on because they feel like success in content is transferable. It is not.
No.
Just because I did Gyan Central and let's say one other brand does not make me the expert in another field.
Yeah.
And I think that is both awareness on my part and ethics on my part in terms of like business of like what I'm trying to sell. But it's also awareness on your part, right? If you're a startup founder, don't go looking for a UGC creator and expect them to like handle a podcast. They will not know. Like the workings of Instagram and making content on the platform, in-app editing is drastically different than what we do with like all of this production. Like think of it this way. We have one mic, one camera, one light. And it took us like 2 hours to set up.
I mean, like including everything else.
Including everything else. Just like to come set up the location.
See where to put everything, how to do this.
So it might seem like, hey, this is just a one-person setup. It's like just enough for one person listening, right? But it still takes time. So imagine if you're doing this with a guest, scheduling, strategizing, what does the format look like? It is a ton of work. And I think now with the creator economy booming, people are slowly understanding that yes, it is not just hey like a social media manager चिपका दिया like यहाँ पे you do scripting, you do editing, shoot भी कर लो, उसका iPhone ले लो. Like literally I've been told that we don't have camera, it's okay, that employee has iPhone, no, you take it and you shoot. It does not work like that.
Bro.
Which brings me to the point of what you were talking about. What's the minimum investment that you need?
True.
You don't need it.
I think investment is the tricky aspect of it. Okay. You have to understand how your brand has to look like outside. And how are you planning on executing this? I've seen multiple different ways of this being done. But think of it this way, right? If I am LV and I don't spend on my visual media, there is no way that's going to work for my brand. Right? But on the other hand, I am like a very simple UGC product, let's say a bummer. For me, then it's not that intentional for me to spend insanely a lot of money on how the visual looks. Right? And also, like, obviously the price points are different and like the kind of audience that we are looking at is different. But you have to understand, okay, how should my brand look outside? And every penny that you spend on content is directly proportional to how it looks.
Correct.
I'm talking to people and they are sort of explaining to me what they want and everything, and they are probably looking at me for like a quotation or something, like how the financials would look like. I see how they have designed the brand and everything. I take everything of that into consideration and sort of give them like a quotation and sort of explain to them, boss, see, this is why it costs so much. It's very hard for them to wrap their head around. Okay, you are getting only one camera, one person. Why is it costing so much? Boss, it's not just one guy and one camera. There is so many things that are going into this. You don't even see half of it.
You know, as you're saying this, like something just hit me that your content and the strategy that you use is directly like linked to your content market fit.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, long story short, what the algorithm wants, what you want to make, and what your viewers want to see. Right? Those three things. And that is itself linked to the product market fit. Because as you are saying this, I'm thinking back with all the people that I've worked with, right? All the companies that I've worked with. And the companies that are the most challenging to work for are the ones that don't have product market fit yet. Because they themselves don't understand who their product is for.
True.
So they are kind of figuring it out. And in that figuring it out, they're like, okay, right now we want this. But by the time the project is midway, like their expectation and needs change. And they expect the outcome to also change with it, which is not how it works.
And also, funny that you mentioned this. When you're working with brands like that also, you generally see like the confusion in your brain that translates into a video.
Correct.
And then you're blamed for it not working also.
Correct.
Like they're like, bro, but we expected it to work X way, Y way.
And you know,
it's not working like that. And that's a very interesting insight. Like with some of the better brands that I worked with, like GrowthX, they know, wow, this is what we want, this is what we want. And for some other brands, they're like, this is on the ballpark of what we want. And you do what you do. And like that makes or break everything that happens.
For these brands, I'd like to say the locus of accountability is variable.
I like to call it clarity trickle down. Trickle down of clarity.
Correct.
Whatever clarity your boss has, his subordinate will probably have like about 80% of that.
Correct.
And the number of steps that pass, the number of hoops it goes through before it reaches me depends on how well the video is getting made.
100%. Yeah. And with a lot of these startups, the problem becomes, like this has now become a therapy session. But the problem becomes that they are unclear in what they want.
Right.
And they expect you to read their mind.
Oh, bro, it's not even read their mind.
Like you should know. You have to be
only present, bro, to do all that.
And when things are working really well, you are a external entity.
Yeah. It's just,
and when things are not working, suddenly you are accountable for everything. Arey, aapne bola tha nahi hua, kyun nahi hua? And I'm like, you don't know what you want, man. Why are you blaming this on me? But okay, coming back to of like what startups should be doing, right? So first is have that clarity. If I were to break it down into steps, first would be, do you understand who you are making your product for? And by extension, who you want to make content for? I mean, politicians do this really well, right? That we know that elections are in 4 years. We know that like the population is going to boom in like 5 years. So we are front loading and targeting people who are like 5 years younger than our current demographic. So this is
politicians.
I learned this from Filter Copy, right? So let's say if they are talking about a certain series, right? Let's say permanent roommates or medical, the thing is happening. Their demography is not just the people who can directly resonate with that series, with that piece of content. It's also people who feel nostalgic. And it's also people who aspire to do that.
True.
Like if I want to get into an MPO or if I want to start a startup, I will go and watch pictures. I don't have a startup, but I will go watch pictures saying ki, very cool, aspirational. If I've already had a startup, right? Directly
nostalgia.
If I left a startup or I've exit or whatever, right? Then it's like, oh, nostalgia.
Correct.
Right? So you handle all three of those buckets.
Right.
So long story short, my point is that you have to understand who you're making content for.
True.
First, you have to understand who you're making a product for.
Right.
And you have to understand who you're making content for. And that dictates what content you will make.
And I think there is one more point. What kind of content can you do? I think that's so bigger. That's also a big factor of what you should be doing.
Correct.
You should play to your strengths. Obviously, you need to understand who you are making your content to, what content you are making, and really understand what can you do.
Right.
Because if it's not your strength, then you are not able.
Bigger is not always better.
Exactly. And that sort of creates that perfect circle of, okay, now I can start looking at content very objectively, right?
Right. No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So the first step is to understand what you could be making.
Yeah.
And the second is to evaluate if it is viable to make in the first place. Right? So like you said, if like I could be making a podcast, podcasts are the craze, right?
Yeah.
But is it viable? Do you have the expertise to come and talk?
Yeah.
Right? If you do not, if you're a founder who is for whatever reason really camera shy, or if you're like a marketing person who doesn't have a speaker, because podcasts and like being on camera, it is about like your character is like your character, right? It's like your persona and how charismatic you are and all of these things. So if you don't have that, then it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then coming to your expertise of is it even viable to do from like a production standpoint?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's one thing to see something on screen, but like you can tell more about, like talk more about this, but like it's a totally different thing to realize that, hey, to get that one thing, there are so many things that are happening that you have no idea.
Biggest contributor to the costing would be how the look comes out.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is not a lot of people understand what goes into making what. I mean, like a lot of times, like ads and decently well-produced things will look the same. But the amount of effort that goes into each will vary insanely. Because when you, for a simple example, you look at any like a new startup like which has received decent funding, their ad, and when you watch what somebody like Ali Abdul does, right? You watch his podcast, it's great. It looks great, feels great. And you sort of equate the costing, right? It's like, हाँ इसको तो इतना लग रहा है, तुम्हें क्यों ज़्यादा लग जाएगा? See, the problem is they don't see what are the different things that goes into it.
Right.
Like for an ad specifically, you have your DP, you have your director, you have your, obviously there is, before that there is script writers.
Correct.
There is, art directors who are building your sets. And on the set, you have your DP, your assistants, your light guys. There is also the makeup artist, the art director who is getting ready for everything. Like getting the set ready for everything and everything.
Costume designer.
Yeah. And there is one guy managing
Casting guy. Yeah.
Everything. All that goes into an ad. And when you are even thinking about content, right? There is a lot of moving parts when it comes to content.
The one trend that I keep noticing is that content is the last thing that people think about. It's like last in, first out. So it's the last thing that companies prioritize. It's the first thing to be cut when, things are not working. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing.
Right.
Obviously, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it is warranted.
Right.
But for the most part, most of these decisions, what I see are very premature. Like I'll give you an example. I was working with an edtech startup.
Okay.
For a 5 podcast series.
Okay.
Okay. They were already posting content on their YouTube. This is long form.
Okay.
Right. And their existing content was repurposed lectures. So lectures that were given by the founders and other teachers over Zoom calls 4 years ago.
Okay.
That were being repurposed and uploaded on YouTube regularly.
Oh, okay.
In the middle of this, they started a podcast series.
Oh, okay.
In the middle of all of this, that, hey, let's do a podcast. And they went
Like, what was the frequency of them posting? Were they putting every day?
Almost like once every 2 days, you can say.
Oh, and so they were already jam-packing their whole schedule.
They're already doing that. And then they went all out on this podcast. The VP of marketing became the host.
Okay.
They hired like a full production team.
Okay.
People who are working for like Byju's regularly.
Right.
Because they have to shoot a lot of content.
Right.
It was like a 3-camera setup, 6-person crew setup. They had to hire a space.
Right.
And they got me for strategy and post-production.
Okay.
Now, obviously there were some things that were not working.
Right.
Right. Because I was under the impression that, okay, it's a podcast where 2 people are sitting and talking. It became a talk show where they had segments. Oh, this seems cool. Let us do this. And all of this on paper might seem
Easy.
reasonable or easy. But for someone, none of these people had any experience with content.
Okay.
None of these people had...
So, okay. So there were so many people involved. Who was in charge of the podcast?
It was the VP of marketing who was also the host.
Okay.
But the problem was that the VP did not understand what they were trying to accomplish. It came from the founder that, hey, let's do a podcast.
Okay.
And it became very messy. right? No one knew what was happening. Like I made the proposal for a 2% podcast. It became a 5% talk show.
Okay, from 2 people, the number of people on camera became
Instantly it became 3. Then it became 4.
okay.
Right? And then like none of these things were thought out.
They didn't even think like how to execute it.
Correct.
That, yeah.
So none of these things were thought out, and their expectations were that, hey, this has to go viral. This is not working. The founder came and like subtly told me, oh, this is not working. This will go viral now. And I was like, that's not how you should think about it.
What is go viral? Like you want views?
Yeah.
Yeah, pay for your views in.
So like the whole thought process needs to be changed.
Correct. True.
Exactly like how people think about growth now, right? As a concept, people need to start thinking about content as a concept, right?
True.
Because just think about, I feel like it's discounted a lot, right? That is the biggest pain point that I feel, that people don't acknowledge how much effort it goes into the entire process. Like if you think about successful creators, right? For example, Ali Abdal, who are essentially now businesses.
Yeah.
They are not like
not
us who are sitting and doing everything.
True.
They are business, and think of how they look at it. Because their principles can be like applied in a lot of different places. One, every step of the process has a POC.
Yeah.
Thumbnails has a person who's doing like 50 different combinations for each video. Scripting has a POC, right? Producing has a POC, right? Someone who's managing everything.
Yeah.
Production, there is a DOP, there are people who are managing the equipment, there are editors. So every vertical is separate.
Yeah.
Nothing is cluttered. Distribution has multiple POCs.
Right.
Because if you think about it, each platform has different nuances. Right? They have different types of people using the platform, and the algorithms are very different. So you need to have enough context to even directionally say that, hey, this will work here.
Right.
Like if I haven't been on Twitter that much, I will not know that, hey, I can use this one automation right now, the trend is coming, and like we'll get a lot of at least temporary traction that way, temporary reach that way, right? So you need distribution experts to be for each platform. I am willing to bet that in the next 5 years, there would be experts who are experts in social media, like platform specific. Hey, I'm a Twitter expert. I'm a LinkedIn expert. And we're already seeing that now.
Yeah.
Right? The first movers are coming to the top.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, there are a lot of, like, it's basic neglect to a certain extent.
Right.
And it's also just a lot of, like, a lack of understanding. Because they don't understand how good content works. They treat it like a transaction.
Right.
That, hey, I will pay you money, you give me views.
Right.
But it's so deep, so much deeper than that, that it's, and you can't be the one to convince someone to do it.
True. It's like people who are responsible in those roles need to help them understand, like building content is like building a product. It's like designing a product. How you design your product, that's exactly how you design your content also. Nuances involved are very different, but the idea, I think, is the same.
Correct. No, you're absolutely right. Because like there is no one size fits all.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, what most people treat it as.
Yeah.
We've done content, come do it for me. Just quickly kar do work. It doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it's not like quickly kar do. It's like quickly scale kar do.
Right.
I don't think they want us because they want to do content. It's like, karo.
They want results. Yeah.
Why you come today, like next 2 weeks, I want to see results.
Correct.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
That much. It's not like nobody will be able to achieve or something like that, but it's like a rare case scenario. And even some of the most established brands struggle to really make content work.
Yeah.
So a new company coming out, making it's like a long ball shot. And people needs to start understanding, okay, I have to hit that threshold after that, which I can actually think of scaling.
It's not that it's not possible, but the investment that would require is so high that people just don't understand it.
True.
For example, you could get like a Mr. Beast or a Paddy Galloway and probably figure out that, hey, like one YouTube video, 10 million views.
Yeah.
Right? But again, that scarcity of knowledge is like, it's so scarce.
True.
to know, to have that guarantee that Paddy Galloway, I know for a fact he charges like some $1,000 an hour. Is a founder willing to pay like almost close to a lakh?
Yeah, I think
Just for consulting, not even actually going and doing it, just for that.
1 hour consultation call. It's not even anything else.
Yeah.
I think it probably charges more than that.
Probably.
Yeah.
This is from like a few years ago when I remember listening to him on a podcast.
Right.
But that's another thing. So like, that's the problem, right? And this is the classic freelancer triangle. You can either have it fast, good, or cheap.
Yeah.
You can't have all three.
Bro, forget all three. You can probably have 1.5 of these things. It's like you can have good quality, reasonable speed.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do it fast also that way. Right? You can have 1.5. I think you need to slightly change. Because see, most of the time you're not hiring a whole team. You're hiring one guy.
Exactly.
Most of the time. And you can't make him jump in and do magic.
Instantly change things. That's not possible. Think of content as a movie that doesn't end. Or like a TV show that like
it's exactly a
keep
TV
on
show.
going, right?
It's exactly a TV show actually.
And you expect
it will end sometime, but it's a long way. You also never know when it ends.
Yeah. And you expecting someone to come in and to change everything is like, hey, like there's a storyline that's going. There are
I mean, most times you don't know what the storyline is.
But still, something is happening. It's very bad. Nothing is working, but something is happening.
Right.
And you expect someone to come in and instantly in the next episode only be like, everything has changed. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you need at least 30, 50, 100 videos. I remember asking this we went to that event, no? That Siddharth. What's his name? Aluwalia. Siddharth something. So he's like he has the neon
guy
show,
show.
the neon fund and all of that. So I asked him that, okay, what should the expectation be? Right? And he was doing his podcast and he said for the first 100 episodes, nothing happened. Right? So you need to have that muscle to make 100 pieces of content.
Yeah.
Right? And I think people shouldn't think of it as, hey, this is an investment, because when you look at it as an investment, the immediate expectation is of a return.
Yeah.
It's not an investment. It's a setup cost.
You start thinking about it like startup investment. Although you're a startup, but small company,
Startup, correct.
it's like a mini startup that you are investing in.
Yeah.
You never know when the outcome might.
You have to be okay with it going bust. Yeah.
And like some of the companies who actually make it happen is because they take most of the heavy lifting in their company. It's like even when the freelancer is coming, it's for a very specific job role.
Correct.
Like I have worked with companies, my role was to go there, make it look great.
You're a specialist, not a generalist.
Exactly. I walk in, I had to make the set look great, him, like whoever the person is, them look great in the camera. That was my core job role. Anything goes missing, they will, like anything goes off, is not looking great, I was answerable for it. But outside that, I was never answerable for anything else.
Right.
So when you want to keep the costs low, you have to pay for the specialist.
Right.
And you have to be able to afford a specialist.
Correct.
And you can't expect, okay, they'll do everything in-house, but you come in like some godforsaken budget. That will not happen again.
Correct.
It's not like nobody will come, but you have to be okay with that compromise again.
Yeah.
It's like you can't expect everybody to fit into your budget.
Correct.
Whatever your budget, okay, if they're not okay, you have to move down and scale up and scale.
Correct.
Cross and scale, but yeah, that you have to figure.
That's a great analogy. Think of it as a startup. And I feel like most people start content too late. Most brands start content too late.
Yeah.
Like they start content when something else has already started working.
True.
And the expectation is that, hey, we got to this level from that. Can we do more with content?
Yeah.
And it's not that you can't do it,
But the skill set is very different.
skill set is different. The learning curve is different. Time will be different.
Sure.
Right? So that exponential thing will come. But 10x return will come in like year 10.
Yeah.
So you have to account for that. So I feel like content should be one of the early priorities.
Sure.
Regardless of what you're doing, content should be one of the first things. Do you know this company called BuildSpace?
Builder Center. No, Buildspace.
BuildSpace. So it's a US company.
Okay.
Started by a Pakistani guy. And the whole concept, I still haven't understood it fully, but it's like we encourage people to learn new things on the go.
Okay.
So they have like a cohort sort of a thing for 6 weeks, and you pitch your idea, and every week you have to like stay accountable. And of the people that stay till the end, they use their distribution to like kind of put them on a platform, right? Something similar to GrowthX, but it's fully free. It's open sourced. Open source as in like you can do whatever. You can start a song, create an app, start a company, use
You can
agency,
do anything, but use this as a leverage for plan.
Yes. And you're just like, you're finding like-minded people to do cool shit. That's all.
Okay.
Right? They started content very early, from day one. Because I've been noticing the founder, his name is Farza. He comes on content everywhere. He comes on these Zoom calls and these, all of these content pieces that they're putting out. Then they hired like a producer who's making all content in-house, and he's a one-person team. Which makes sense because the type of content is also 1%, like Instagram Reels type.
Correct.
It's not ki, oh, I have 4-person crew, we're sitting down doing. No, it's 1-person reel. Like you have to keep on making, keep on pushing out, keep on making, keep on pushing out. Which still makes sense. But I think this expectation setting in the entire industry needs to be done.
True.
If more people have to benefit from content.
I think you have to, before you want to do content, I think it's very important to speak to somebody who has good enough understanding about doing this. That is one. And understand if they are able to pull it off from their end. It's okay, you will hire somebody, whatever. But you can't directly equate it to the other company, right? Like everything will change between you two.
That is.
So to either speak to somebody like an expert who will be either able to set you up with people or like really understands what is happening. And I think if they have the budget, they should ideally think about paying somebody to be able to sit with them and sort of figure out what is happening before they start content. Because in any case, once they start doing content, they will have to spend way more than what they are going to spend on him to sort of understand where they are spending money.
I feel like hopefully whatever we are doing here together individually, this will help create better clarity in the industry about how content works.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not experts yet, at least I'm not. And well,
we are basically on different boats on the same horizon.
We're not experts yet. I would like to say that we are on the way to try to becoming experts.
Yeah.
Try to become
experts. We are learning every day.
Yeah. We're aspiring to become experts. And as we are doing that, I feel like we are the first movers to help other people understand this also.
Yeah.
Because a large part of it is that there aren't enough people to do it.
Yeah.
And there aren't enough people to understand what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So there's like a weird mismatch in both supply and demand.
True.
So as more and more people start making content, understanding what's working, how these algorithms can be leveraged, funnels, all of that, more brands will also be able to, like brands and companies will be able to benefit from like that growth and talent.
True. And good that you mentioned this, because I see a future where like the companies who want to make content will have great synergy with creators. Like it's not like they will start hiring, I don't know, like I don't see marketing guys to fit the bill, to be honest. I think company will start hiring creators to be able to run their in-house channel.
Exactly.
And it will be always done in-house.
Yes.
I don't know about how the production, like post-production, everything, but like the core idea and essence of everything that's going to be done will come from one person, and that is going to come through a creator is what I think will happen.
No, 100%. I don't think consulting and hiring outside counsel is the right way to go.
Yeah.
And the market in general is going to gravitate more towards, hey, let's just do this in-house. It's going to be cheaper. And it will.
Yeah.
It will be cheaper.
And it's faster. It's more in-depth.
Correct.
Everything. It's like a very advantageous thing, but to find the right person, I think, is the challenge.
And you need to have the right thought leader or expert, whatever, to, like I said, creative dictator to command all of this.
Yeah.
Because it should not be under the marketing vertical.
True.
Because content and marketing, I feel, are very different. At least what I've seen so far.
Right.
what you do with SEO and blogs and all of these other things.
Right.
It's very different and should be treated that way.
I know I haven't worked with like hundreds of companies, but whichever companies I've worked with, I've understood that when one person is like really calling shots, that's when like things actually happen.
Yes.
Forget like happening well.
Exactly.
That is the only scenario I've seen things happen.
Yes, 100%.
It's not like it doesn't happen when somebody...
No, whenever there's a committee, nothing moves forward.
Yeah.
Because there is one person who is peddling some agenda. There is one person who is trying to do the right thing. No one is giving a shit about them.
Yeah.
There's one person who's just like, no, I need more convincing. I have convinced it.
Yeah.
So there has to be one person who's driving the ship
Yeah.
and everyone else just falls in place under them.
True.
I genuinely feel like so many startups are taking ill-informed decisions. They're discounting content, saying that it won't be worth it. Or, like if we're not getting immediate results, then like things are not working. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right? We have seen way too many models that have successfully created hundreds of millions of dollars of like proper brands.
Right.
Right? Through content. So it's possible. But it's not linear. It's not everything is transferable.
Exactly. And also, like the timelines also for everybody is very different.
Yes.
And it's only very rare cases people have seen great growth in probably 6 months.
Correct.
Like 6 months is also pushing it, I would say.
Correct.
Like exceptional results I have never seen happen.
So like a lot of people that come to me for video essays especially, right? They refer to Vox as like a reference that, hey, I want that style.
We have to write to the editors, bro.
If you are
to make content about, to put up a post saying it takes this much time to make this.
If you are someone who even remotely thinks, or you've thought that, hey, I want to make Vox style of videos, just do one simple exercise. Watch a video, go till the end, count the number of people that are part of that one team. For one video, they will have 20 people.
At least.
They will have half a dozen motion graphic designers. They will have 4 researchers. They will have 2 producers, 1 editor, 1 writer. And they'll have like a team of a dozen people who are doing this. And one step further, you go and check their credentials and you'll realize how specialized they are in what they're doing.
And also the kind of time it takes for them to pull it off.
Yes. So it will take them 2 weeks to make the video.
Bro,
which you are expecting your intern and 2 other people
execute the video. Though research starts much before that.
Yes. And they'll probably have like, actually, I'd love to do that. Like talk to a Vox person, maybe Joss herself.
Right.
She's the co-founder of Vox.
Yeah.
About like what this process looks like.
Yeah.
But that is proper research.
Yeah.
That is journalism. It's not like you can't discount it saying, हाँ भैया अरे video है तो it's not यार. They set up an entire style. And if you think about it, I actually did this exercise. You go and see the first Vox video that had the same style. So they invested into it from day one.
Yeah.
They knew that, hey, we have extreme clarity of what we want.
Okay.
So you can't replicate. Like I remember I was working with some founder and he's like, yeah, now that you're here, we want to create the next Vox. And I was like, yeah, for that you've given me 3 interns. Right?
Yeah.
You need to invest into these things.
True.
And you have to understand that there's a reason why, like you have to look at yourself as a media house.
Yeah. I mean, see, the problem is for them also to look themselves as a media house. They should know how media houses operate.
Yeah.
So ideally, you have to understand. Okay, you don't see yourself a media house. Great. Talk to somebody who's in the media house.
Correct.
Ask them how much it costs. Okay, you're not spending that kind of money, but just ask.
Yeah, just for reference.
Just to sit, talk to them, see how much it costs. That'll change your idea on what is happening.
So to kind of sum things up, if we had to quickly summarize a few actionable points, right? So let's say we worked a lot with early stage startups.
Yeah.
What they should do in content, if at all they should do content at all.
Right.
Right? What would those steps be?
I think just to sort of recap also of what we did. First is they have to understand what is the content that will work for them. Who are they doing this content for? And like basically understand their audience and also understand where their expertise is. Like what will they be able to actually like realistically do? The second point is to understand what it's going to cost to do what. I think costing is one of the biggest blunders. So understand what costs what they'll do in-house, what is something that they have to spend an expert, like, getting an expert on board, or, getting somebody on board to be able to outsource anything, getting that into consideration. How are they able to budget for it? And the third point is to understand how to distribute, like what formats work in what, platforms.
Right.
Having like a clear picture of, okay, this is the content piece and this is the platform we are going for. Because there's a lot of optimization also that is involved in terms of making it work on a specific platform, right?
Correct.
So that has to always be there.
Yeah.
But like, you have any point with that?
A few things I would recommend is, one, know that setting your content pipeline up will take time. Give it 6 months. And like you said, treat it like a startup. That, hey, this is like, we are allocating this much amount of money, which we are ready to lose, knowing that if it works out, the benefit is astronomical. That's one. Second is, don't start that ROI calculation of, hey, I'm investing this, what am I getting out of it, until that 6-month period is reached.
True.
After that, you start. Right? So I'm not saying don't do it at all, because of course you can't stop, but do it after a certain setup period is done. Right? Then, like you said, know your own. Ideally, you should have product market fit, and consequently, you will have content market fit. Right? That will also take time. So it is good. My recommendation would be that if you are even remotely considering content and you're waiting for something to happen for you to start doing content, that, hey, right, once I reach this revenue, I will allocate 10% of it to start content. Don't do it now. Because by the time you reach that revenue, because your existing marketing and product teams are going to keep on working vertical, like they will do whatever they will do in the next 6 months. So if you also start content at the same time, you will get both fits together, and that is ideal.